Welcome to the new Flat Ride of the Week weekly series. In this series, me and Schwarzkopf Fanboy, the GPT community's most knowledgeable flat ride enthusiast, have a casual discussion about various flat rides, new and old, in an effort to help inform the wider roller coaster community on the forgotten world of flat rides. Please keep in mind that unlike coasters, information on flat rides is extremely hard to find. The most comprehensive flat ride database has not even been updated since 2006. So please keep that in mind when watching this video. If you find any inaccuracies, please politely correct us in the comment section so we can all learn together. Let's get into this week's flat ride, the Enterprise. So welcome, Alex. So for the first question about the Enterprise, who developed the Enterprise and what was it inspired by?
So what many people don't know actually is that Schwarzkopf made the first Enterprise, which was inspired by the Superpassa, which is some kind of enterprise with a complete different lifting mechanism. So yeah, Schwarzkopf made 4 types of enterprises in the late 70s and beginning 70s too. The first one debuted in 1973, the Schwarzkopf Enterprise 1, which is approximately 59 feet tall, which is about 18 meters, with
18 meters.
16 gondolas.
Yep.
And 2 people per gondola.
Yep. And the Schwarzkopf Enterprises have a very distinct cabin shape that you won't see on like a Huss Enterprise. The restraints open up a very different way. Is that correct?
Yeah. But the gondolas are different on the 1 and the 2, and then on the park versions and the Enterprise 4. They're very different.
Yeah, so the Enterprise 1 and 2 are portable, the Schwarzkopf Enterprise 1 and 2.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Yes, very similar between
But
1
they
and
have
2.
Yeah. And then the 3, which debuted in 1975, is a park version.
Permanent installation. 64 feet tall on that one, which is about 19.5 meters.
That one is still pretty common compared to the other types. We still have some of them around, unlike the 1 and the 2.
Yes. And then Schwarzkopf's final Enterprise model.
The 4.
Yep, Enterprise
It was
4.
a bit smaller than the Enterprise 3, with 16 gondolas, and it debuted in 1979, and it was permanent or mobile.
Yep, and it was 51 feet tall, which is 15.5 meters. So, very interesting on the Schwarzkopf Enterprise. Definitely a very forgotten ride. A lot of people, I know I didn't before a lot of this research, didn't even know Schwarzkopf made Enterprises. I thought it was all Huss. So, we're going to be moving on to the competition now. So now that you know Schwarzkopf's Enterprise, the Enterprise 4, by the way, was 1979. That was the last Enterprise made by Schwarzkopf, well, designed by Schwarzkopf. After that, they didn't improve the design at all, at least not in Schwarzkopf. All right, so on to the competition.
Yeah, so then after Schwarzkopf, Huss made some variants of it. First, the normal Enterprise, which is about 20 meters or 65 feet tall. 20 gondolas, 40 people per hour. These ones are very common still.
Yes, I believe that's the same model that Witch's Wheel at Cedar Point was, which is a very well-known Enterprise.
Yes, sure.
And you'll notice that it is larger than all of the Schwarzkopf Enterprises.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned it, but this was 1975 that these were first introduced.
Oh, yeah. So then they made some other kinds of Enterprise. The Flyaway, which is like a flying Enterprise. You lay down. It's 22 meters tall, or 79 feet tall. 18 gondolas, 36 people per ride, so a bit less than the normal Enterprise.
But a very weird one.
Yeah, these ones are not common. I think 4 were built. There was one at Six Flags New England, but it only operated for 6 years, I think.
Are you aware of any that are still operating?
Yeah, sure. There is one in China still operating, and in France there's also one still operating, which was the old one from Bobbejaanland in Belgium.
Ah, that's the park with Revolution for all the
Yeah,
coaster enthusiasts
and
out there.
yeah. So then another variant of the Enterprise made by Haas is a Skylab, which is basically a huge Enterprise with 15 gondolas, 4 people per gondola, so 60 people per ride, which is a lot.
Is this the
I couldn't
stand-up
find.
Enterprise, or was that a different Huss
No,
model?
no, 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 no. That's a different.
Okay,
The
sorry.
Skylab is the very big one, like Orbiter at Canada's Wonderland.
Okay.
Couldn't find any stats of the height on that one.
Yeah.
So, but it's higher than any other Enterprise.
It's a huge Enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we have Heinz Fotzi.
Heinz Fotzi, the famous Enterprise manufacturer. Me and Sam from the Discord, aka Misty Viper, always like to laugh at Heinz Fotzi because they actually made Darien Lake's Enterprise, which famously is the Enterprise that gives airtime. It is, it is quite an interesting ride, and it's actually awful. I wrote it. It's terrible compared to a Huss Enterprise, but yeah. Go ahead and tell us about it.
Yeah, so Heinz Fotzi made 2 Enterprises, so the one at Darien Lake that you just mentioned, and one traveling in New Zealand.
So that's the 2 most random places for a random German guy's Enterprise.
Yeah, sure, but it's not traveling anymore
Ah.
in New Zealand, so probably somewhere in storage or scrapped. We don't know.
And unfortunate, because they're quite an interesting take on an Enterprise. I mean, they look the same as a Huss, but it actually has at least a Darien like a manufacturer plate that says Heinz Fotzi, and you can tell when you get airtime on it. It's not a normal Huss Enterprise.
Oh, well, then yeah, a lot of other companies made knockoffs, and there are also a lot of built-in-house Enterprise.
Yeah.
Which can be very strange. There
Yeah.
have been some very strange.
After Schwarzkopf introduced it, other people just went wild with the idea.
Yeah.
There's a stand-up version of an Enterprise I think you showed me. We're not sure on the manufacturer of that one.
Yeah, there's a Spanish knockoff with 2 stand-up gondolas, but they're not the same as the Huss UFO, which is kind of Huss stand-up Enterprise. I'm gonna tell you about that later. But that one had actually a normal Enterprise gondolas, but with stand-up seats.
When you mentioned the Huss really stand-up Enterprise, for people who don't know, you face inside towards the center of the Enterprise. On this weird Spanish one we're talking about, you face forward like you would on a normal Enterprise sitting down.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
And also the raising mechanism is very different. It's actually what Huss is still selling, I believe.
Yeah, kind of. And it's almost the same, I think, like Zamperla.
Yes, like a giant Discovery.
Endeavours.
Oh yeah, Endeavours, not giant Discovery. My bad. Yep. Zamperla Endeavours, which I guess we should mention those because those are kind of the successor to the Enterprise.
Yeah, still being manufactured, and they're kind of a success. There have been quite a few of them installed.
Yes, Six Flags is buying them every year, it seems. They're kind of their new hit ride, because the Enterprises, a lot of the Huss and especially the Huss are really getting removed these days.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, definitely a very interesting model. So you want to talk about the Huss stand-up Enterprise?
Yeah, okay. The stand-up Enterprise, which is called the UFO, you're just standing up in cages without any restraints, and you face the middle of the ride, as you mentioned earlier. There are, I think, 4 of them are operating, well, Wild Nightmares at Canada's Wonderland, one in France, one in Gold Reef City in South Africa, and the prototype is still traveling in Germany.
Yeah,
Called Alpha 1.
Very successful model. Very interesting model for sure. It's huge.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to move on to some famous installations of the Enterprise that a lot of the viewers probably are familiar with.
Yes, so first of all, the orbiter at Canada's Wonderland, which sadly got removed some years ago. It's now in storage and up for sale, I think, but I doubt that it's gonna be relocated to somewhere else.
Yeah, and that was the giant Huss Enterprise, which was the Skylab, correct?
Yeah, Skylab. Yes. Then moving on, we got another Skylab, the Skylab from Döllich in Germany, which was the prototype. It was traveling, and sadly, in 1982, a very tragic accident happened with it. Let me explain you. So the Skylab was giving its last round on the Hamburger Dome in Hamburg, in Germany. So it was the last day of the fair, so some other rides were already disassembling. The catapult next to it needed a crane to disassemble it. So they
Catapult
put
being
the crane
a
up.
flat ride or being a Schwarzkopf launch coaster?
The Schwarzkopf Catapult.
Okay.
The coaster.
Yes. The one most coaster enthusiasts are probably familiar with. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So that one was being disassembled with a crane. The Skylab still gave one of its last rounds with people in it. So the Skylab went up, but the crane was too close to the Skylab. So the Skylab basically hit the crane of the catapult, causing 6 deaths.
Yeah, that's quite a crazy one.
Yeah, that's really sad if you lose your life on a ride.
Yeah.
But actually, it still traveled after that accident under
Really?
that owner. But yeah, it got refurbished, some new gondolas. But then, after some years ago, got sold to Israel.
Ah. Is it
And
still
it's
operating, do you
sadly-
know? Oh.
No, sadly not scrapped, but not completely. The backdrop is still in the park for whatever reason.
That's quite the story.
Yeah.
And then we have Witch's Wheel at Cedar Point, the Enterprise that I'm most familiar with. I only rode it 3 times last year before they removed it. And it was built in 1977. It was a Huss model, one of the standard Huss Enterprise models, which was introduced in 1975. And it was a pretty fun ride.
Yeah, sad that it got removed.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on. Enterprise at Tivoli Tur in Estonia, which is a very, very interesting Huss Enterprise, normal one. At Tivoli Tur in Estonia, it caught fire. There is footage of it,
Yes.
and it really doesn't look good.
Yeah, that footage you're seeing now on your screen.
Very sad.
But I believe no one was majorly injured in that, correct?
10 people got injured by a smoke inhalation.
Mm-hmm. But
and
no deaths?
31 patients. I don't think so, no.
No deaths.
But 31 patients got first and second degree burn.
And that was a Huss model, correct?
That was a Haas model.
Okay.
And actually, after the fire, it got removed from Tivoli Tur and it got sent to its old owners. So the first owners.
Huh.
The first owners were Skå in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
But then after Sweden, it got sold to Estonia and there it got fire. And after the fire, it got sold back to its first owners. And the first owners completely refurbished it. And then sold it to the Netherlands.
Oh.
And then in the Netherlands, it traveled for some years. And recently, like, I think around 5 years ago, it got sold to Nigeria. And it's still operating.
Wow. So an
in
enterprise
Nigeria.
that caught fire like that, still operating today. That's pretty
It's
crazy.
still operating.
When was the fire by chance? Do you know?
The fire was in 2007.
2007. Yeah. Very interesting story of that enterprise. Very interesting story.
Yeah, sure. Then we got GeForce at Wallaby Holland, which is a normal HUS enterprise. And as many of you probably don't know, is that Wallaby Holland is not its first location. It first opened at Walligator Park in France. Back then it was Wallaby Lorraine. And it was the first type of enterprise ride in France.
Ah.
And back in France it was called Reactor.
And that was a HUS model again, correct?
That was a HUS, yeah.
Okay.
And actually, another interesting thing about it is that it uses the old gondolas of Wallaby Belgium's enterprise, which partially scrapped, apart from the gondolas.
Very interesting. And then on to another enterprise with an interesting story. We have Volcano at Kennywood. Go ahead and tell me about that.
Yeah, so Volcano is a normal HUS enterprise, and there were actually two of them. Enterprise has got Kennywood got two enterprises, so both called Volcano, and yeah, the first of them, Kennywood was the original owner, the first owner, but then in 2015, I think, it got removed and replaced by Lake Compounds' old enterprise.
Ah, very interesting.
And the first enterprise then got used as a spare parts donor for the new one from Lake Compound.
Very interesting. And then on to one of the more well-known Schwarzkopf enterprises in the U.S. We have Screamweaver at Carowinds. Go ahead and tell me about that one.
Yeah, so Screamweaver at Carowinds, it's a Schwarzkopf Enterprise 3, which probably many of you don't. Like, mostly you think it's a HUD, but it's not. It's a Schwarzkopf, just like Orbit at California's Great America.
Yeah.
That's also a Schwarzkopf Enterprise 3.
I know when I saw Screamweaver, I thought it was a HUS, so I didn't bother to ride it. Had I known it was a Schwarzkopf, I would have hopped on.
Yeah, it's a Schwarzkopf, like Orbit, as I just said. Then we have Enterprise at Siharan, which is also a Schwarzkopf Enterprise 3. But that one is interesting too, as it is not originally from Siharan. It's from Knott's Berry Farm.
Huh.
And at Knott's Berry Farm it was called Loop Train.
Huh.
But actually, that enterprise is not Siharan's first enterprise. The first enterprise at Siharan was a Schwarzkopf Enterprise 2, which was transportable and had a backdrop and stuff. But that got removed. And then later in 2010, I think, it got the Knott's Berry Farm enterprise got built.
Huh. And who made that one?
Schwarzkopf.
Schwarzkopf, okay. Alright, and then on to one more Schwarzkopf enterprise.
Yeah, the enterprise at Funspot Kissimmee, which is the old wheelie from Six Flags Over Georgia. So it's also a Schwarzkopf enterprise.
Oh, I think we have an error here. It's not at Funspot Kissimmee, it's at Funspot Orlando.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I think that's my fault. Anyway, yeah. So the enterprise at Funspot Orlando, which is that a Model 3 or a Model 4? Do you know?
It's a 3.
3? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have some other interesting facts about the Enterprise here, so if you want to go through some of those, and then we can close out the video.
Yeah, sure. So the prototype Huss Flyway, so the Enterprise with the flying gondola.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the prototype was on display at IAPA in 2000. Then IAPA was hosted in Atlanta.
Huh.
And after IAPA, it was then sold to Yan Funsen Fancy World in Taiwan.
Huh.
The park with diving machine G5, the clone of Oblivion.
Yes. And
Insane Speed, a B&M fluoroscope.
Yeah, I think I know the park. So Huss was making these flyaways pretty recently. Most people think of the Enterprise as dying out in the 70s or 80s and then just kind of lingering on. But they were still selling these as of the year 2000.
Yeah. Another fact is that Huss actually still produces the Enterprise.
Yes.
But sadly, no one buys it.
Yeah, a lot of parks seem to be opting for the Zamperla Endeavors for whatever reason.
Yeah, sadly. So yeah, the Huss New Gen Enterprise actually got an option for lab bar gondolas. Which is
that would be quite fun. That would be a lot better than the Zamperla solution.
Yeah, sure. But of course, it's better without any restriction, you know?
Yes, obviously. You can't beat that original Huss and Schwarzkopf and Heinz Fotzi. No restraint at all. You're just in a cage, which was definitely a unique thing. Because, you know, what other rides can you go upside down on and without a restraint, you know? All centrifugal force there. And if you ever ridden an Enterprise, you really do feel it. It's really fun.
Yeah.
At least a Huss one.
The fun thing is that the height limit is very low, so if you have kids, you can just take them on.
Yes.
And make it their first inverting ride. It was actually my first inverting ride. The Enterprise Hellendoorn in the Netherlands.
Very interesting. Yeah, I know some of the Enterprise, especially here in the U.S., got their height limits increased because U.S. parks are very scared of things like that. I do know the one at Darien Lake, the Heinz Fotzi one, is still at 42 inches, though, so lots of people can ride that one. But I know Cedar Point had Witch's Wheel bumped up to 48 inches, which it didn't need to be. There's really no way you can get out of that. You know, you're in a closed-in cage and you're being thrown to the ground. So. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, that was it.
All right. So the Enterprise, a very, very interesting flat ride that is unfortunately being closed around the world. It still lives on in these Zamperla Endeavors, which is, you know, good to think about. Six Flags buys those things all the time. They're in every announcement video, and other parks are buying those as well. Kentucky Kingdom, for example, just got one here in the U.S. anyway. But the original Enterprises still live on at a lot of parks like Fun Spot Kissimmee, Kennywood. All these parks still have original Enterprises from either Huss or Schwarzkopf, and overall it's just a very interesting and enjoyable flat ride. That will do it for this week's Flat Ride of the Week. If you guys have any flat rides you want to see covered in the next Flat Ride of the Week, be sure to comment them down in the comments section and we will take a look at them next week or the week after. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next week. Goodbye.